linked with the tasks of our alliance, and you were also Minister for Asia and a Minister also of Tourism. So your presence here, it's very timely, Your Excellency. And I would like to ask you that after addressing the ministers, I would like to seize the opportunity to greet Mr. Ernesto Villegas Pollack, the Minister of People's Power for Culture from Venezuela, and also Ali Padrón Paredes, Minister of People's Power for Tourism. Those are promoters of this meeting. And I would also like to greet Mariana Alejandra Rodriguez
Recording in
Martinez,
progress.
the Director of Political Coordination of Integration Mechanisms and Vice Minister for Multilateral Affairs, Mr. Arias, also, and Leticia Cecilia Gomez, the Vice Minister for International Tourism from Venezuela. I would like also to welcome Alpidio Alonso Grau, Ministry of Culture of the Republic of Cuba, Juan Carlos Garcia Granda, the Minister of Tourism also of Cuba, Fernando Xavier León, Vice Minister of Cuba as well, and Maria del Carmen Orellana Alvarado, First Deputy Minister of Tourism of Cuba. With me here in La Paz, we have Salinas Orellana Cruz, Minister of Cultures, Decolonization and Depatriarchalization from Bolivia, Eliana Milenka Ampuero, Deputy Minister of Tourism of the Ministry of Productive Development and Plural Economy. Also, I would like to greet brothers and sisters of Nicaragua, Laureano Ortega Murillo, Presidential Advisor for Investment Promotion, Trade, and International Cooperation, Shantani Anasha Campbell, General and Administrative Co-Director of the Nicaraguan Institute of Tourism, Camila Ortega Murillo, Coordinator of the National Commission of Creative and Orange Economy of the Republic of Nicaragua, Mara Vanessa Scotti, responsible for the direction of the tourism development of the Nicaraguan Institute of Tourism. I would also like to extend cordial greetings to Denis Tat, Minister of Tourism, International Transport and Maritime Initiatives from the Commonwealth of Dominica, also Rosen Paul, Minister of Sports, Culture, and Community of the Commonwealth of Dominica. I would also like to greet the Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development, and Culture from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Mr. Carlos James. Also, the permanent secretary of the Minister of Education, Youth, Sport, and Culture from St. Kitts and Nevis, Valencia Cider. And I would also like to greet Raul Icausi, the president of ALBA Bank. Today, we have a very interesting agenda, very rich agenda. The most important topics are culture, ratify our commitment with the culture of peace, culture of joyful, against the culture of death and the culture of plundering. And we have huge challenges today in the framework of the pandemic, but not only the consequences of the pandemic, but the pandemic which has been used as a weapon against our people, and also the UCMs, among other measures. But we're here today to talk about cooperation in culture and the acknowledgement of our ancestral values, the principles of our indigenous peoples, cooperation mechanisms, exchange of information, the defense of our national identities, and in terms of tourism, the need of promoting exchange and cooperation to work with our international fora, on the integration and recuperation of our economies in the midst of the pandemic, in a series of proposals that our authorities will, uh, on which they will ponder and comment. I would like to be brief, so I will now give the floor to Mr. Felix Plasencia, the Minister of the People's Power for Foreign Affairs of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Welcome to our alliance, and you have the floor, sir. Good afternoon, dear Sata Lorenti, the Executive Secretary of ALBA-TCP, and other authorities present here in Venezuela and in the Caribbean, Central America, and South America, where you are located in La Paz. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for holding this event in the headquarters of the Foreign Affairs Ministry of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. And this is just to express how important culture and tourism is for ALBA-TCP. The Venezuelan Foreign Ministry has always been committed with peace, with the people's encounter, with solidarity, inclusion, and we have always been determined in bringing peace and tranquility not only to our region, Central America, the Caribbean, and South America, and America as a whole, but also to our brothers in Africa and Central Asia, of the Middle East, the Southeast of Asia, China, and the Pacific. From Venezuela, we have been adamant in the framework of our revolution led by our commander Hugo Chavez Frias. We have been adamant in exchanging cooperation and offering our friendly hand to the peoples of the world and within the framework of the South-South cooperation, the South that wants to build a better path for peace and tranquility. The Bolivarian Revolution or the Bolivarian project is not a different one from the one expected from love, encounter, and solidarity. You already said it. The culture of peace, the culture of life, of joyfulness. This is what we want to stress. And this is the culture we would like to promote and work with. Today, I convey these words to you to welcome you in the Foreign Affairs Ministry, which is the house that harbors the domestic affairs, international affairs, and also the Chavez project that is being led today by Nicolas Maduro, that a house that has always been preparing to conquest, triumph in the fields of tourism and culture. I said to the Minister Ernesto that we cannot make tourism without culture, because our culture that has thousands of years of existence from our ancestral people, it's a very rich culture that many want to know and appreciate, and not in a passive manner, not only in a passive manner when we go to a museum, for instance, or when we visit historical sites or architecture works that are spread all around our region, but also the active culture, the one that you can see on a day-to-day basis through gastronomy, through dancing, through music, through art. And today, we want to build a post-pandemic route to promote direct tourism for the peoples, not the only a tourism that is related to hotels, big hotels, and big corporations, corporations that receive thousands of tourists. That has already been done. That has already been taking place. But today we want to give the priority to a more humane approach from our hearts, from our feelings, and also very happy of promoting this peaceful approach, peaceful culture and tourism to tap from our cultural and gastronomic riches and this wonderful weather that we have in the Caribbean with our flora and fauna. These are capital elements that have the utmost importance. And also, we have been privileged with the beautiful landscapes. We do not we need not to mention this, but we know that the islands in Cuba, the islands in Caribbean and Central America, the Venezuelan islands, and also the Anglo-Saxon Caribbean islands, our Amazonian forests, our mountains, our waterfalls, our Orinoco River, which is a beautiful river, majestic river that goes up to Trinidad and Tobago. There's a richness that comes from the mountains, the Andean mountains that are also covered by snow, art, culture, the presence for thousands of years of our indigenous populations with their arts, with their works in our woods. Ernesto, he is an expert on all that. And he knows that I am passionate about all these topics. And I always ask him, Ernesto, help me to gain more knowledge on this because I want to present all this, not just to take financial gains, which is not within the spirit and the hearts of those who work in ALBA. Our hearts, our spirits are for tolerance, respect, inclusion, integration, and cooperation. This is why ALBA was born. This is why Petrocaribe was created. Raul, you have made an excellent effort in Petrocaribe to offer to our sisterly nations from the Caribbean that might be encountering some hardship. And I say that they are uh, from the Caribbean, like ourselves, and all the archipelago from the Caribbean up to Cuba, Haiti, are manifestations of our own peoples who have been there for thousands of years. So we have a commitment with the defense of that wealth, that riches. For instance, our production in cocoa, which is one of the best of our region, and also coffee, and also sugar cane. So these are products that can be exploited for our gastronomy and to use our unique species, our fruit from the Amazon region that are being used today in gastronomy. So we could use all these products to present ourselves, to showcase our innumerable, wonderful products. in this very rich land where there is constant rain, we have a very fertile lands, and it favors our plants and vegetation. The only plants that have medical properties that we can share with the rest of humankind from our lands, from our insular Caribbean continental space of Latin America, the Caribbean. Sasha, if you allow me, I know that our brothers and sisters have time limitations, but allow me to say I participated in a meeting with the President of the Republic, and I apologize for being late, but I want to tell you that this is a very staunch commitment. We have the main ministers of culture and tourism, the vice minister of multilateral affairs, the president of Endure. These are government bodies that were created from the times of Hugo Chavez Diaz in order to give more solidity to this fields so that culture and tourism in the world, the most predominant area will be in our region. I don't have doubts about this. I'm certain that we can do it. And in my capacity as the Minister of Tourism and the President of a Banco Exterior, and also the Chief of the Government of the Insular Territory, Francisco de Miranda, the Los Roques archipels. Well, I assumed all those responsibilities, and we promoted all these landscapes. We went to the summit of the Tourism International Organization. We went to St. Petersburg in Russia, and I met with the tourist authorities with Russia. And back then, I told them our interest of having Russian tourists to Venezuela, those that are visiting today the Caribbean, visiting the beaches of Cuba and Dominican Republic, we enticed them to go there. And I made proposals. I told them, let's go farther. Let's go to the Cuban beaches, the Caribbean beaches, or the Caribbean beaches such as La Tortuga, Cuyagua. All the member states of ALBA-TCP beaches, the ones of the southern continent, and I told them, come also to Venezuela, come and visit the Indian mountains, which have always snow on the top, 5,000 meters mountains that you can see in Venezuela, in Bolivia, and you will enjoy that beautiful landscape of the Titicaca Lake or the Maracaibo Lake, and also the Orinoco Delta, the Grand Savannah, our national parks, and you will have an experience, a deep experience with Amazonas forest. It's a very easy trip, I told them, only 1 hour flight. And I also told them that we have a national airline, Conviasa, and I see the opportunity to congratulate its president, Ramon Velasquez, who has been working very successfully with that airline, which is now an example of regional tourism. We are doing flights with Airbus and other airlines, and we are also bringing medical supplies with Conviasa. And Venezuelans that were duped are coming back through Conviasa aircraft. These Venezuelans wanted to explore and see other options. And it's a right. Migration, it's a right that is enshrined in the public law. And it is a right that is in the World Migration Organization. It's a right of anyone wanting to go abroad. But the fundamental right is the one of coming back to our country, return into our country. And we are doing this thanks through Corbiasa and Ramon Velázquez. And also is a success of President Nicolas Maduro, who has told all Venezuelans to come back to our homeland, who has invited Venezuelans around the world to come back to our homeland where they can dream and be happy. This is also very important in our endeavors in tourism and culture, which you are going to address today. I just wanted to say those introductory remarks in order to declare that we are committed and that we will do it, Sasha, with you leading this effort. You are going to give us the indications. You are going to direct our efforts. ALBA-TCP is always listening to what your intelligence and your capabilities have to tell us. We know you from the work in the United Nations, and I know how you defended in a very staunch manner the international law, the UN Charter, and the system that civilized nations created to avoid all the attempts of peace in order to promote the tolerance, solidarity, integration, growth, joy. And I also went to Turkey, and I was the Minister of Tourism and Foreign Trade and President of Bank COEX that time. I was the chief of the Insular Territory Francisco de Miranda, a responsibility that was invested in me by the President of the Republic in order to invite them to visit our archipel with more than 21 big islands with a unique flora and fauna, and also with anthropological riches that are there, belonging to whom? To the Caribbean Indians, to the Caribbean Indians that took to the these islands from the continent and carried their rituals and their culture. So in Turkey, I also talked about culture and tourism. And the Turkish government is aware of Venezuela's potential in terms of tourism. And I'm sure that they will be coming here by the thousands. And I addressed this in a meeting with the Minister of Culture and Tourism in Turkey. We also addressed the topic in St. Petersburg first and then in Istanbul, where we met, and we held a video conference in order to exchange our views. Turkey is the day that harbors 14 million tourists, and it's a very important tourist power. And they need to come to Venezuela because our islands, the Caribbean region, is different from what they have. And they can see here a different fusion of landscapes. I also talked about this when I went to Qatar. In Qatar, a president of one of the best airlines received us.
In Turkey, we were received by the head of Turkish Airlines, while a long time before the first trip, I took part in those meetings with the heads of Turkish Airlines to ensure that they come to Venezuela. So, and President Erdogan committed himself to make sure that Turkish was coming to Venezuela. Well, we started with one flight. Today we have 7 flights, and we built that relation. That was the seed, our determination to ensure that they could fly to Venezuela. And Turkish Airlines today has the greatest connectivity in the world. And we went to Qatar And I was surprised when Ambassador in Qatar told us that the president of the airline is waiting for you. The Qatar Airways, Al-Bakr, Mr. Al-Bakr, it is a giant. It is a giant airline, and Qatar Airlines must be together with Evidence and Turkish Airlines and Singapore Airlines tie among the first in the world because of their connectivity, service quality, the uh, the timeliness of their flights. I was telling the Ambassador Joffre, who is at the airport, who's waiting for us. The president, he said, we were arriving at 2 o'clock in the morning. At 2 o'clock in the morning, arriving in Doha, and at the airport, we had Mr. Al Bakr, CEO Qatar Airways, was waiting for us at that early time. It is no doubt the best airline in the world. He received me, and he took me with him to his car and made me visit the airport. And he said the airport was built for the airline, and the airport is not separate from the airline. They are in conjunction. So the tourist policy of connectivity that an airline deserves. I was learning at that time. I mean, Ali has been in the tourist area from the period of the dinosaurs, or um, Ernesto, who comes from hard work in the field of culture. I joke with Ali because we are brothers. We worked together as vice minister, and we did a lot in the non-aligned movement in Margarita. Without the hard work of the ministers, of those heroines, those fighters at that time, Marlene Contreras y Delcy Rodriguez, we would have not have had a very successful non-aligned summit in Margarita in the hotel of Leticia. The potential of Benetour Margarita is huge. Well, we have everything, but I want to go from the international to the national realm, and to go to the original realm, because it is also important. We have had a fusion of a gastronomic culture, renowned gastronomy, but based on our own fruits, the fruit of the Amazon forest, the species of our Amazon, and there is someone, a great cook, working with a cocoa. 18 of our entities produce cocoa. I represented Venezuela in the World Cocoa International Organization, International Cocoa Organization, and these organizations were in London, and now this International Cocoa Organization is in Cote d'Ivoire. And they used to tell me, the Secretary General of the International Coffee Organization said the coffee grain of Venezuela is the best. The coffee grain of Venezuela is the best in the world. But also the Nicaraguan coffee grain is very good also. The one they're producing in Cuba and other Caribbean islands and in Central America. Same thing, cocoa. the fine porcelanosa cocoa produced in 18 of our regional entities, such as Zulia, Sucre, in La Guaira. We produce great cocoa, the best cocoa in the world. And we just one small bit of cocoa in Europe. They manufacture the best chocolate, the French and the Swiss, etc. So we are preparing the best. I Raul is warning me because I'm too long, and since he's a close friend, he is warning me about the time. So this is the route. This is the path. Ali in tourism, Ernesto always before. We have learned from him, and Raul in Petrocaribe in Central America and the Caribbean. And I wanted to uh, remind you that on top of Turkey, Russia, and Iran, and the vision of Al-Bakr, of Qatar Airlines and Turkish Airlines, and our vision from Conviasa, which is in expansion, we have the People's Republic of China. The People's Republic of China is the country that today is sending more tourists abroad. 135 million tourists come from China. 135 million Chinese want to go abroad to know not so much about the beach. I learned they want to know about culture, they want to know about revolution, they want to know the emancipation processes. In the 200th anniversary of the Battle of Carabobo, they came they came to the embassy and they were interested in how the victory was obtained. They want to know about their culture. 200 years of independence for them is a lot because until last year, the last century, they were under the Opium Wars, and West were insulting them and colonizing them. So, and today they're a powerful nation. So, what the West wants to prevent is the what cannot be prevented. The China, which is a powerful nation today, and taken a peace initiative in harmony, a win-win. The Belt and Road is an initiative and it's not trying to invade, conquer, or impose culture upon other people. They don't want to impose their culture upon the world. They want everybody to win with them. So we're going to attract these people. We're going to bring them over to our country. China defends its minority ethnic group. They are Han, but there are other minority ethnic minorities. In our constitution, we also defend our ethnic minorities. So that tourism wants to know and visit our ethnic minorities in Central America, in the Caribbean, in South America. There are hundreds of ethnic groups, original ethnic groups in our greater homeland for China to meet. So we can attract many Chinese people to visit us, and that we can also visit China and know for ourselves China has huge resources, and those resources are there not for domination, but rather for engagement with the rest of the world. China is essential, and with China, we will be able to do many things. Today, they are suffering the pandemic. They have a strict lockdown protocol. The 135 million inhabitants or tourists, Chinese tourists, they are doing national tourism. Today in Venezuela, the same thing. In the latest figures, 10 million Venezuela are doing domestic tourism. In La Guaira, 2 million people visiting our beaches. So 10 million Venezuelans have done um, domestic tourism. China, with the 1.4 billion inhabitants, of course, is a larger proportion, is a larger scope. But to have 10 million Venezuelans doing internal tourism, domestic tourism, is also a great victory. I met the Minister of Tourism of China, and I offer ALBA our connections with the Minister of Tourism of China and Russia. And China is an ally of ALBA, and they want to know ALBA. Say the same thing with ASEAN. They also want to be close to ALBA. ASEAN and ALBA also could have a strong link. So we're going to work ALBA, China, ALBA, ASEAN in the same manner you are working with ALBA, Russia, and ALBA, African Union. And Venezuela is a reference in the Arab world. President Maduro defended decisively the Palestinian cause, and he traveled several times to the Middle East, to Turkey, to raise his voice to defend the rights of the Palestinian people while president of the non-aligned movement. And today we are in the non-aligned movement in the Troika. We are present, and we are going to Belgrade in the coming meeting to talk about ALBA. And before the non-aligned movement, we are going to meet this non-aligned movement and ALBA. But now we have heard the foreign minister of Mexico saying that we need to eliminate the OAS and it has to rest in peace. And with your leadership and our leadership, with the leadership of all of our ministers and Raúl Causi, and following the guidelines of our president of Bolivia, Nicaragua, Cuba, and the sisterly nations of the Caribbean, we need to succeed. And Cuba respected in the NAM movement because Cuba set the example. Cuba said a long time ago, OAS should rest in peace. Well, we have the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Mexico invoking this need. And Venezuela joined Cuba, and little by little, we are going to do this. We cannot continue accepting the abuse and the attacks of Almagro and his attacks against Venezuela, Central America, Nicaragua, and Cuba. We reject him forcefully. We're going to have a dignified tourism based on our cultural strength, a millenary culture. We have seen, for instance, crafts that date back to 15,000 years, vase, jars dating back. And these 10 countries of ASEAN, Russia, China, Turkey, and Qatar, and Iran, they want to know about those ancient tradition. The 54 countries of the African Union want to know about this long tradition in the region. So they have to come to Venezuela as the best friend of the Arab world in this area. In Latin America, we are a reference, and from here, we extend our hands to ALBA-TCP. Sasha, I'll, I'm sorry for it, the length of my address. It's the first time I take the floor as a new foreign minister. Here, Commander Chavez built everything together with the great foreign minister who was Nicolás Maduro. And here we continue building upon those roots. And Delcy Rodriguez was also a great foreign minister of Nicolás Maduro. And now Jorge Arreaza is giving us this huge responsibility after a marvelous term and a marvelous defense of our nation. So here we destroyed the group of Lima. We will continue building with culture and art, and I'm totally committed. This foreign ministry is totally committed to your work, to the work you are performing in your countries, countries that I visited, that I love, and that I appreciate, and that I love dearly. Our Caribbean, South America, Central America regions, Cuba, which is in my blood and my heart, as a grandson of a Cuban. I'm come a little bit from Santa Clara also. So my grandmother, Micaela, uh, she is in my heart as a grandson of a Cuban great parents. So, what is my greetings to all of you? A big hug, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Foreign Minister Felix. Of course, you can count on all of our efforts and our support now that you are leading the foreign ministry. And you made an excellent analysis, and you took us to the many places of our Americas, and you have described in a very accurate manner all the challenges that we need to face. So I reiterate the best of the best for you, and that success is going to be the success of the big homeland. I will now like to give the floor to my friend Ernesto Villegas, the Ministry of Culture in Venezuela. You have the floor, sir. Thank you, Sasha. Greetings to all of you, brothers and sisters from ALBA-TCP. I would like to thank our Foreign Minister, Felix Plasencia, for hosting this meeting, and also our brother Ali Padron, the Minister of People's Power for Tourism. And these are very whole. Uh, 30 years ago, I worked as a reporter, and I covered the visit of Commander Fidel Castro when he met President Chavez. In this very same hall we are today. And back then, it started Alba's CAF and Alba's roots. From 2004, ALBA was created as an alternative for the peoples of our America, and that spirit accompany us today. That the rebellious spirit, hopeful spirit. Now, when the world is fighting a very harsh battle against hopelessness, ALBA is the hope for our people. Now, I am going to read my speech. I would like to thank President Nicolas Maduro Moros and the Venezuelan people for the solidarity expressed by ALBA-TCP in face of the very difficult situation during the heavy rains that have occurred in several states in our territory and that which has created the loss of human lives and material damages. We have a crucial task to advance together through hardships due to capitalism crisis and its effects on climate change, which has produced a collapse in the climate of the world and the consequences of the pandemic in our societies, which has hit our political, social, environmental, cultural agendas. Also, we need to add the negative effects of the UTMs that have been denounced constantly by all of us in the multilateral spaces and want to combat all attempts against the human life and the planet. We want to build a world based on peace and solidarity. In the midst of these adverse circumstances, ALBA is a new way of uniting our peoples, putting at the center of its agenda the humankind, offering the possibilities of uniting our complementarities and potentialities in the cultural, economic, research, training, the dissemination of the diversity of our cultures fields within our America and in the Caribbean, as our foreign minister mentioned, as part of our heritage, of our essence. Culture is a natural space for constructing new values of this new world that we need to consolidate. And we have convened here to establish a roadmap that will enable us to fight the cultural battle of our times. In Venezuela, cultural rights of the peoples are guaranteed in our national constitution, fostered by Commander Chavez and approved by popular referendum in 1999. There, the objectives, the strategic objectives of the Bolivarian Revolution are enshrined. Articles 89, 99, 100, and 101 guarantee the creation of intellectual property, preservation, conservation of cultural heritage, tangible and intangible, a special attention to popular cultures, recognizing and respecting the interculturality under the premises of equality of cultures, the dissemination of popular tradition and of the work of writers, composers, movie makers, researchers, and other creators from the diverse cultural manifestations. It is also enshrined in our Organic Lawful Culture Article 23 to 40, which creates the protection of the law per area and disciplines, allocation of resources, management, guaranteeing the rights to culture of our people. In the Homeland Plan 2019-2025, in Objectives 1.5, we mention an important flag of the Bolivarian Revolution, of the Bolivarian state in terms of culture, which is the decolonization, which includes a series of disciplines and activities to free ourselves from colonization. And even though circumstances may be different, according to cases, we all see colonization all over. Coloniality is present in our practices, in our minds, and the recolonization forces are constantly attacking us. The expressions of this new colonialism is not just a new topic, it's all across the national life. Decolonization is the center of the necessary cultural transformation, and this is the reason why we have given full priority. We bring to this meeting with a lot of humility, some ideas that will enable us to move forward, tasks that come from the ALBA cultural agenda. These are common actions of our agenda that seek to give more force and importance to our social organizations and civil organizations within the block of ALBA. We believe that this is a timely opportunity to continue strengthening ALBA-TCP through arts, through the main artistic arts that are conducted in our region. Venezuela puts at the disposal of ALBA, for instance, our South Biennial and our international book exposition in Venezuela, which can interact with ALBA as natural spaces. We need to move forward together, strengthening our technological capabilities and training programs that will enlarge our abilities in catalog, dissemination of cultural matters, among others, and also create exchange programs in culture to develop a network of museums to exchange and cultural heritage, to foster editorial programs for educators in ALBA and also to promote their visibility and presence in agendas from the regional bloc, just to mention some of the examples. We would like to, Sasha and Felix, to put at your disposal Venezuela's experience and the candidacy in UNESCO of Venezuela manifestations as a heritage of humanity from 2013. And for this year, we should have completed 8 cultural manifestations that were proposed by Venezuela and approved by UNESCO as a universal heritage for humanity. The San Juan Bautista folder it's going to be authorized this year. And this year, we are going to submit also the Venezuelan joropo as a Venezuelan dance, an expression of our cultural richness, which is going to be recognized also by UNESCO. And Venezuela has recognized it also as a heritage of humanity. Some years ago, we started our process of the common identity as sovereign independent peoples, as a Caribbean people, Latin American people, which recognize our roots and our diversity, which is one of the driving forces of our organization. Today, we ratify our commitment with the promotion of a diverse world, promoting dialogue, knowledge, art, culture, which enable us to enhance our identities and which is in connection with the important task of making a call for humanity of a new social paradigm as our singer Ali Primera said, to make of our humanity a more humane humanity. We will continue moving forward in midst of hardships, in spite of blockades, UCMs, arbitrary actions. We will prevail. Solidarity will prevail, which is incarnated in ALBA-TCP. So let's vanquish against hopelessness. ALBA is the hope of the peoples. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ernesto, for your remarks and also for having mentioned the decolonization of one of the main tasks of our organizations, because racism, discrimination, hate, these are the legacies of colonialism. And thank you also for the concrete proposals that you've made. Without further ado, I will now give the floor to our brother Ali Padrón Paredes, the Minister of the People's Power for Tourism in Venezuela. Dear Ali, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Executive Secretary of ALBA-TCP, Mr. Foreign Minister, other ministers, Minister of Culture of Venezuela, Comrade Ernesto Villegas Polar. I was just mentioning to the Foreign Minister some moments ago that a few weeks ago we held a meeting in the Ministry of Tourism with the Secretary General of ALBA-TCP. And we discussed many issues, but among those issues, I told him that for us it was very important that in the framework of the ALBA-TCP meetings, we could include also the Ministry of Tourism and to make this connection between tourism and culture, not only because they are the expression of the same reality, but because we understand that in many countries, tourism and culture are a part of one single ministry. But here in Venezuela, we have two different ministries, but related in many aspects. And today, in the Ministry of Tourism, we held meetings with the Turkish TV experts, some journalists that were experts in making documentaries and videos, and they are here in Venezuela. They will remain here for uh, several days. And in the middle of that meeting, I told them that the cultural references are important in all these meetings. So culture and tourism is one big notion, and this is the approach that we have had with Minister Villegas. And I know that this is the same, it is also the case for the Caribbean countries. So having said this, I just wanted to say the following, uh, make the following remarks. Tourism has been heavily hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. The latest data of the International Tourism Organization talk about a reduction of 74%, but in some countries it's even more, 90%. Our countries in the Caribbean have been hit by the pandemic. Their finances, their economies have been deeply hit and affected by COVID-19. And tourism sector drops of 80% above the world average. In Venezuela, the pandemic has also affected the tourism sector. We had an important drop in 2020 over the world average, about 80% fall. And since October, Mr. Foreign Minister, after the opening of the tourism sector and other 53 sectors of our economy, with the policies that have been made by our government, we have been witnessing a recovery in the tourism numbers. And we have seen that tourism has been recovering, and also whether the abiding by the biosecurity protocols and the restrictions that have been ordered by the Ministry of Health. So we have been moving forward in the midst of this very daunting challenge, which is the pandemic, and also in the midst of the sanctions, the blockade, and the financial harassment. For 2021, we have had a timid recovery, but it is a recovery all the same, and we have been able to move forward. And now we are seeing with optimism our future, particularly the tourist sector. National parks such as the Canaima Park, the Archipelago Park from Los Roques, when you were the Minister of Tourism, and also when you were the President, Mr. Felix Plasencia, and all the coast, the northern coast, in the Falcon State and the Anzoátegui State, in these weeks of flexibilization of the sanitary measures, we have seen how the tourism sector has been recovering. And under the premise that we need to abide by the sanitary protections and the 7+7 strategy implemented by the government. I wanted to say also that the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela endorses the proposal made by the Republic of Nicaragua in this sixth meeting of tourism held in the Dominican Republic. They made a call for the harmonization of sanitary protocols and the interconnectivity which you addressed as tools to reactivate this sector. It is important to agree on the harmonization of such protocols. Of course, each one abiding by their respective sovereignties. There are different regulations, norms, and protocols to face the pandemic, but it is important that we come to an agreement to harmonize some of them. And so that interconnectivity, as you said, sir, I had the opportunity of accompanying you when you were the deputy minister. I remember that we worked with the two important ladies, Madame Contreras and also Delcy Rodriguez, who was back then the foreign minister. So we worked in the first meetings of Turkey-Zealand. As I said today, with the Turkish meetings, we have 7 weekly flights. So this is a very important opportunity that we have. Through ALBA, we can increase interconnectivity, which is very important for our ALBA country, so that we can also face the main challenges that we have as a multinational organization. And I wanted also to make reference to what the Tourism World Organization said regarding a new approach for the multi-destination offers. It is not enough to offer only our Caribbean spaces as unique spaces. We need to offer them as multi-destination spaces, and so that we can offer our beaches, and not only our beaches, but national parks such as Canaima National Parks or our forests. So these will be elements of value for the multi-destination approach in our region, to be a multi-destination and to favor diversity. These are elements that have to be um, tackled in tandem. And Venezuela has also had different experiences with Iran, Turkey, and Russia. And from these experiences, we have learned that we need to learn more from this perspective, multi-destination, and favor multi-destination, so that tourists can visit different places and sites of other countries of our region, Bolivia, Nicaragua, in order to tackle the outbound tourism, traditional outbound tourism, and also to become a tourist pole for the region. And we also um, support the security norms in order to create more trust in tourists regarding the regional actions to handle the pandemic. This is an important, a key element because tourists, they are, before they decide where to go, they look for safe destinations. And Venezuela is head-steering, Mr. President, Mr. Uh, Foreign Minister. We are leading many lists. And thanks to the president in March 2020, we can show very interesting figures that are the envy of developed countries. How, in handling in an efficient manner this pandemic, we have been able to offer better coordination for the reactivation of the tourist sector. So I believe it is important to move forward in a biannual work of program work.
So it's important to draft joint programs, and we need to follow the roadmap to unite efforts to develop training capabilities training and formation of our societies to be able to go from a rentier economy to an economy based on tourism, among others. We need to sensitize communities in order to provide optimum service to the tourists. This is one of the key guidelines of the tourist sector. We need to train, professionalize this sector, and to sensitize our communities and raise awareness. Our country has proposed, and I already mentioned this to this executive secretary of ALBA, the adoption of a tourist mechanism. There is finally a proposal made from the tourist ministry to achieve understanding among all of us, to have a tourist cooperation mechanism among us that could be signed among us so we can move forward with certainty. So this is a proposal that we put on the table, and I hope that soon the countries have a draft of this document and that we could sign the day on September the 27th, where we're going to commemorate the World Day of Tourism, that we could sign this document among us. I was telling the vice ministers and others that all the steps made by the tourist ministry, all the activities we conduct are done hand in hand with the foreign ministry. All our international activities are in the close relation with our foreign ministry. Venezuela currently chairs the Special Committee of Sustainable Tourism. And we are working with Raúl Causi. We had a meeting of the Special Sustainable Tourism of 2021-2022, and we have proposed several topics. And we're going to raise these issues also with the Foreign Ministry, so the coming meeting should be held here in Venezuela. And last, we put at your disposal our interest in working together in the various fronts of our region in order to attain the necessary consensus, enabling to realize the objective to improve tourism in the midst of the great challenges like the pandemic. And in the case of Venezuela and the case of Cuba and Nicaragua, to face this with sanctions and unilateral coercive measures. Greetings to all of you. Thank you, Mr. Foreign Minister, for allowing us to take the floor to, to express our ideas from the Foreign Ministry. And I'm very proud to have received the Foreign Ministry, the Ministry of Tourism from your hands. Thank you very much. And I'm very proud of your election and designation as Foreign Minister. Thank you very much. Thank you for underlying the topics of multi-destination and connectivity. We will circulate very soon the text on the tourist collaboration. So I agree with you that we need to work together. I'll give the floor to Elpidio Alonso Grau, Minister of Culture of Cuba. Minister, you have the floor. Good afternoon. Fraternal greetings to all of you. Dear Sacha Llorenti, allow me to remove my mask, Executive Secretary of ALBA-TCP. Dear Foreign Minister of Venezuela, Felix Plasencia, greetings and congratulations. We are so proud to come from the center part of the country. We come from that city with an extraordinary cultural life and hosting the remains of the famous fighter Che Guevara coming from Bolivia, ministers of culture and tourism of the Latin American Caribbean nations, members of ALBA. We thank the Executive Secretariat of ALBA-TCP to convene this meeting at this juncture. This meeting is held at a moment when we need to find new alternatives for the exchange, enabling through common will and using our potentials to give a new impetus to the cooperation in the field of culture. Despite the difficult social, economic, and health situations we go through, we need to safeguard the rich cultural heritage of our nations to guarantee the proper framework for creation. And as Fidel said 60 years ago, in addressing the intellectuals, the art and culture should become a real heritage of the people. Faced with the new colonizing strategy of the empire, culture is decisive, and it is a driving force to attain peace, emancipation, and development. Justice and prosperity that we defend cannot seen at the margin of full spiritual development. Prosperity that is not subordinated to virtue uh, will degrade the people, as Marty said. Without culture, this work of transformation will be incomplete. Beyond the obstacles, ALBA-TCP will continue and will remain a space of integration and regional unity of the peoples of our America. In this framework of solidarity and understanding, we need to understand that the cultural processes should help in the social transformation promoted by our respective governments. Given the somber situation of the pandemic and the brutal sanctions of the empire against some of our country, these sanctions, despite their opportunistic implementation, have not broken the resistance, unity, will, and creativity of our peoples. Allow me to mention at this time the strong support to the Cuban fight against the US blockade during the last vote of the General Assembly of the UN, where once again the international community rejected this injustice and showed their support to the sovereignty and decisions made by Cuba more than 60 years ago. In this regard, today we are the victim, a witness to a war, a media war, in order to disturb the democratic order that we have built. Encouraged by the traditional enemies, they have devised campaigns through traditional media and social networks to polarize and to divide societies and to smear those who are against the empire. The experience of humanity since 2020 clearly demonstrates more than ever the need to reach unity and joint solution to problems. We need to implement comprehensive policies focused on the development and human happiness, and to strengthen peace and solidarity and not economic gains. These aberrations have created so much evil that it is even endangering humankind. In Cuba, cultural workers have been at the core of the transformative work of the revolution. Cultural community work has been and remains essential in our cultural policy. From communities, we have seen many initiatives and actions channeling the popular participation, and they reinforce social cohesion and the sense of belonging among those who find there the response to many of their expectations and space for this personal and professional realization. Over these years, the work in the communities has contributed to pay a historic debt with the humble. Culture provides an important factor for the quality of life of people. We need to continue our efforts in that endeavor. This marvelous task is at the same time an important contribution to the creation of awareness and the construction of consensus required in order to move forward. At this very moment, based on the initiative of Mr. Diaz-Canel, various government structures are making special effort to support 62 communities in Havana, where we have seen the strength and the authenticity of various forms of cultural manifestations maintained for many decades in those areas. Given the cross-cutting influence, culture requires a greater integration and by the various actors involved, and the creation of new scenarios of networking to strengthen those links and fostering the conscious participation of the people. The strategy that we have devised to tackle this particular moment in time stimulates active participation of the communities in the cultural processes, development of creative economies, and the preservation and promotion of the cultural local heritage. In our case, despite the fact that due to the pandemic, we had to close down many of the cultural institutions of the country, and given the difficult economic situation aggravated with the Yankee blockade, the support to creators and cultural workers remained as a priority of the state, expressed through the wage protection of more than 20,000 musicians, artists, and others since April 2020 until now. Creativity and participation have marked this period where artists and institutions have done to preserve the life of Cuban culture. Some of them have been expressed through cultural media like poetry, music, manifestations, and most of international events today have been organized through the networks, 300% online to more than 150 countries through the media and TV. And in this period, we have organized more than 170 video clips of theater, documentaries, and master class and spots with messages of public health. During these months, we have donated collection of books to communities, hospitals, and lockdown centers and art galleries in virtual space. We have presented art manifestation through internet and dozens of videos, uh, record dance, circus activities, and many other activities. Many teaching actions devised by the teachers of our art sector have been disseminated through TV to reaching the students, their homes. In a gesture of solidarity, the artisans of many provinces transformed the uh, areas of work to manufacture masks and also manufactured health supplies so necessary at this time to face the pandemic. During this period, we have strengthened the relations between the ministries of culture and tourism in order to diversify the space and options that we could offer to our visitors in the future. The list of initiatives is very long, and I cannot elaborate further on them. However, we need to stress that this deployment demonstrates the vitality, spiritual strength, and resistance capacity of a culture that is strong and projects itself with the greater energy faced with the difficulties and the attacks of those who do not accept the reality of a socialist, sovereign, and independent Cuba. These are times of innovation and solidarity. Therefore, I reiterate our willingness to continue sharing experiences in the field of culture as we've done for more than 15 years with the mission culture with the Venezuelan people. We have a hard task ahead of us, but a wonderful task at the same time. Those challenges are opportunities to share the transformative power of culture, and in this manner to contribute to the implementation and fulfillment of the goals of sustainable development. Dear ministers, culture is the best bridge of understanding among peoples. Our meeting should stress the need to strengthen those bridges and to work in order to attain common goals. Let's face with optimism and determination this new opportunity in order to diversify in a sustainable fashion the exchange and cultural collaboration within our alliance towards new horizons. As never before, today we need to be united to help each other and strengthen cooperation in favor of culture, equity, peace, solidarity, integration, and development. Together, we can do it. We will prevail. Thank you very much. Yes, we will prevail. And thank Cuba for your example of dignity that you are showing the world. While you were speaking, I was thinking that our alliance is both Bolivarian and Martian. Therefore, art and culture run in our veins. We have a lot of work ahead, but you are a clear example to follow. Now, I would like to give the floor to Juan Carlos Garcia Granda, Minister of Tourism of Cuba. Juan Carlos, you have the floor. Thank you, Sacha Llorenti Solis, Executive Secretary of the ALBA-TCP. Allow me, before we start, to join you to congratulate the Minister of Tourism and the today Minister of Foreign Affairs. And we are certain that we are not going not only to support the Minister of Tourism, but all thank you for your support. We will continue supporting you as well as Minister of Foreign Affairs. Thank you for your personal efforts. Distinguished Ministers of Culture and Tourism, and other participants. It is a pleasure to greet you and thank you for this invitation to share our views at difficult moments of our nation and to exchange views to reinforce tourism.
In today's juncture, all our countries have faced the impact of COVID-19, particularly in all the activities of our society, but most especially on the tourist sector, which is one of the main drivers of the revenues in our countries. We need also to add the negative impact of natural disasters as a result of climate change. Cuba has faced the intensifying of the unilateral coercive measures and economic blockade. This action taken by the United States, which has already been explained by the Ministry of Culture, this blockade, financial blockade against Cuba, which is pursued also by the Biden administration, is most certainly going to harm the development of international tourism in our country. The current tourism crisis in the world is reaching its second year, according to the World Tourism Organization. Arrivals were 85% less than 2019, less than 147 million tourists, and 45%, a reduction of 45% also with respect to 2019. The emergence of the new COVID strain and the important restrictions to traveling have hindered international tourism. The recovery still is very weak and unequal. And during this period, workers of the industrial and tourist sector in Cuba, with a very altruistic attitude, changed their vision and started working in hospitals. And they conducted disinfectation camps and ICU unities, intensive care unity. With the arrival to Cuba in 2021, where we thought we were going to have a best situation of the we have transformed our hotels and hospitals that today receive pregnant women and also children in order to face COVID-19. And the tourist workers are still there helping, rendering their services and trying to keep a very high quality standards. There are more than 120 hotels that have been working in the midst of a quarantine and have been given support to doctors that are working in the different provinces, also helping travelers which are COVID cases, confirmed COVID cases that are getting to our country through travelers. We know that in spite of all this, we will prevail. We need to overcome the pandemic, to control the disease, and to guarantee safety conditions for our clients. This is a responsibility that we need to assume. Therefore, everything that has been raised here today, and I am sure that the documents that we will receive contain the objectives of this meeting. It is urgent to exchange experiences and to reach agreements in order to relaunch the tourist sector. Once again, we reiterate this. We are aware of the importance of adopting international protocols in order to restart the tourist sector in a safe manner and in a very responsible manner, which is accessible to all. But we are convinced that in order to conduct these activities, to high quality tourism, we should have the least restriction possible. So when travelers get here, can find safe conditions and the pandemic, under which the pandemic will have been controlled. We need to upset the vaccination rollouts in all of our countries, the rest of the world, and work in coordination, effective communication on the traveling restrictions that are changing constantly. Dear ministers, Cuba very humbly offers its positive experience in handling the COVID-19 in the tourist sector and in the implementation of sanitary protocols along with the Ministry of Health. Ever since September 4, 2020, we have maintained our international activities at Vernacular and Baladeros, and we are preparing for a very harsh winter, but we hope that it's going to be like what we used to do before the pandemic. The pandemic has hit us very strong. In 2021, for instance, we have not been possible to conduct tourist operations in within our country or to forest national tourism. As 2020, 2019 and 2020, in spite of the pandemic, we could conduct some tourist operations, but 2021, we have not been able to do so, and we have not provided that satisfaction to our citizens, unfortunately. We can work in designing tourist strategies based on previously executed projects by the ALBA state, including the training, education, and exchange of practices, security in tourism, promotion, and commercialization to develop the multi-destination approach among our countries. But I believe that what Venezuela has raised, what Minister Ali said, needs to become a reality. We have to make sure that what we do in these years will favor the sector so that the travel agencies can find a route to establish contracts, enable them to promote our regions. The countries that Felix mentioned are countries that are important in terms of being fundamental markets for our multi-nations in America, Latin America. And today they participate very poorly. China, for instance, it's a very interested market, and we need to unite it to conquer China, Russia, Turkey, Russia that has also been participating in our tourism, and other countries that the Venezuelan tourist minister mentioned. We also need to incorporate our touristic exhibitions and our historical roots and all kinds of events that we can develop jointly in our country. Given the new normality that the sanitary situation imposes to us, we reaffirm the commitment of working together in the tourist sector through concrete actions in order to favor our sisterly needs. I would like to thank you for support of the making a call for the lifting of the blockade against Cuba and also for supporting us in the rejection of the UPN and also the qualification of our country as a terrorist government by the United States. Cuba maintains its solidarity and cooperation in its foreign affairs in order to favor our nation. Without any doubt, in the middle of this very hard times, we need to work together with more cooperation and confrontation. You can count on Cuba. The reality we're facing requires our solidarity, and we are certain that we will achieve victory. With our hearts, we will prevail. Thank you. Thank you very much, dear comrade. Of course, we will prevail. Cuba counts on us and on all of ALBA-TCP for all these challenges that we will have to face. Thank you. I will now give the floor to our sister Brenda Salina Orellana La Cruz, Minister of Cultures, Decolonization and Depatriarchalization of the Plurinational State of Bolivia. You have the floor, dear sister. Thank you, Sasha Laurenti, Executive Secretary of ALBA TCP, brothers and sister ministers, deputy ministers of the peoples of ALBA. Bolivia, it's a foreign national state, and it's a result of a very long struggle. The originary peoples of the peasant people, it has refounded with a new policy that other than recognizing the fundamental rights, recognizes also the collective rights of the peoples. In this regard, our country is a state that recognizes the different cultures of the indigenous nature of the native populations and peasant populations, and we favor the culture of life in order to live well. For 14 years, we faced the task of building the plurinational state in order to decolonize our society. However, in 2019, due to political and economic interests, we had a breaking off with the coup d'etat, and they killed people, they violate human rights with racist attitudes, discriminating indigenous peoples, peasants, and they also closed the Ministry of Culture and Tourists by then. And today we opened it. They say they said that culture was an unnecessary expenditure in our country, and by so doing, they were hampering the policies that to show our diversity, our richness. However, the struggle of our peoples continued, and we reestablished democracy with the votes on October 18, 2020. We created the Ministry of Culture's Decolonization and Depatriarchalization with the fundamental vision of building a depatriarchalized and decolonized state based on social justice in order to live well. These were launched as changing processes, providing essential change to our society. So we are looking for a society free of machismo, discrimination, xenophobia. We need to understand that culture is the way in which we cultivate the profound values of a people, values that, other than preserving the rights of humankind and the planet, are present today and the day-to-day experience between peoples or countries. We have established actions regarding preservation, conservation, promotion of ancestral knowledge from the different cultural expressions of the plurinational state of Bolivia. We have been then coordinating with other countries' actions in order to integrate key aspects and topics that are important for the Bolivian state, such as the construction of a new culture of life from the approaches of decolonization and depatriarchalization, the recuperation and consolidation of our ancestral languages and practices of our people, strengthening of our originary indigenous peasant peoples, the construction of identities from ethnical plurality, arts and art manifestations as mechanisms to recuperate the historical memory of the peoples and to make visible the communities based on the to strengthen communication strategies among our people, to strengthen the protection and conservation of the cultural heritage in Bolivia, mechanisms for international relations in the frame of the democracy, the diplomacy of our peoples. Dear brothers and sisters of the peoples of ALBA-TCP, we will always be at your disposal in our ministry to coordinate, to establish a dialogue, to build a culture, as I said, a culture of peace and of dialogue, which favors life, which is the most important thing. In this regard, we will always be ready to give our support and to answer the calls of the Secretary Executive of our TCP to achieve this cultural policies for our peoples and to build the big homeland. Brothers and sisters, ministers, deputy ministers, in closing, I have been instructed to speak only for 7 minutes and I'm done. I would like to thank the Secretary for his invitation. And in closing, Hayaya for the peoples of the region. Hayaya for patriarchalization. See you next time. Thank you very much. Thank you, dear sister Sanina, for your inspiring message from the perspective of the plurinational state of Bolivia. It's a privilege in Bolivia to walk through the streets of La Paz. And now that democracy has been installed, it's indeed a pleasure. I will now give the floor to Milana Milenko Pueblo Velosa, the Deputy Minister of Tourism of the Productive Ministry and Plural Economies. You have the floor. Thank you very much. I would like to convey the greetings on behalf of the Minister of Tourism, Mr. Wakatura, a ministry which is integrated with the Ministry of Tourism. I would like to share the actions that we have been conducting in order to foster tourism. We have set three important measures. These measures are urgent measures regarding the tourist servers. We have strengthened the tourist projects from the communities and also the private initiatives with some actions that are key to continue developing this important sector, such as the counseling and technical assistance, training, education, which is of the essence in order to tend to our tourists, but not only tourists, so that the tourist services can also be developed. And on the other hand, we have been working also in the recuperation of a work which has been hit by the pandemic. We are constantly talking to all the vendors of tourist services without leaving aside the tourist risk, which we have been managing in order to implement biosecurity protocols so that tourists can feel safe and also in order to prevent the negative impact of climate change, of capitalism. We have been working also in observatories that help us to make planned decisions in order to better structure our activity. The second measure, prioritary measure, is the work we have been doing with all fundamental aspects such as the development of national tourism The population in our country needs to get hold of tourist heritage, which is we have a country that has a rich culture, diversity, gastronomy, and other aspects that had to do with the tourist activity. We have implemented a plan that has been very well accepted by our population, and we hope that we will have more than 50% recovery by December this year. Another important aspect has to do with the tourism of ALBA countries, favoring proximity tourist markets that we have in our region. Regarding the strategic measures, and the third key measure, we have been working with the promotion of tourist commercialization in the national market and in the international market. It is true that there are restrictions for travelers, but we need to pay special attention, as you have said, to those strategic markets for our countries, such as Turkey, China, and Russia. It is important also to solidify our position vis-à-vis those markets. We need to continue our efforts so that our activity can be developed. From the Vice Ministry of Tourism, we propose to give continuity to all those agreements included within ALBA-TCP, such as the multi-destination project, the creation of hotels that can standardize tourist services with other ALBA-TCP countries. It is also important to continue to work of the liberators route in our country. This is what we have been working on, dear Secretary, and this is what we wanted to share with you and share with you the experiences that you have developed in your country. So we would like to confirm and reiterate the engagement of our ministry, of the tourist ministry, to work in the assisted nations of our TCP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Minister. Several of the concrete proposals made by Bolivia are in the minutes that we will present to you. Laureano Ortega Murillo, Advisor for the Promotion of Investments, Trade, Cooperation of the Republic of Nicaragua. You have the floor, sir. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Sacha, thank you so much for your excellent coordination. Felix, Foreign Minister, we had the pleasure of seeing you in Madrid. Warm greetings from the President, Vice President, and Sister Rosario, who remembers you with a lot of love. Dear friends, ministers, Vice Minister, attending this meeting. It is indeed a pleasure to share the space with the sisterly nations of the ALBA-TCP, with whom we share challenges, objectives, ideals, and a heart. We beat as a single heart, an eternal heart, alive with Commander Hugo Chavez. We've been working in developing tourism hand in hand with culture. Therefore, It is very important that we preserve the work of development of our destinations as a different offer for some new markets and for whom we could be a new adventure. As Felix said at the beginning, it is good to be a potential good market for those countries. With those countries, we share our same vision. We are talking about China, Russia. We need to attract that market. Turkey, also the Arab nations, as Felix said, since there we have a huge potential and we could have a very attractive destination. I'm not talking only about Nicaragua, but about all of us, each of us with its own potential. But this joint work can make us stronger. Regarding the internal work we perform, especially since last year, and we've been affected, we have concentrated in having our own potentials in alliance with large companies. We have continued developing training, workshops offered by our Ministry of Tourism together with the municipalities. And all of this has been reinforced for 2 years with the comprehensive plan conducted by our government. Because, as I said before, in 2018, there was a coup attempt that hit seriously the basis of our economy. Thank God, we prevailed following the footsteps of Venezuela, the example of Cuba, Bolivia. We prevailed over that coup attempt. However, that affected our economy. And we tried to find some alternatives and trying to find solutions so our people could continue developing. And the National Commission of Creative Economy was created, led by Camilo Ortega, and they work with tourism, culture, and small and medium-sized businesses. And as you all know, those who are working with tourism, that gastronomic, cultural, commercial offer, tourists appreciate enormously when they visit us, both national and international visitors. So the strategy to strengthen the capabilities of small and medium-sized businesses has enabled us to have some oxygen, to give oxygen to the sector of tourism and commerce. And this has meant an opportunity for Nicaraguans to know better their country. So last year and this year, we've seen an increase in domestic tourism. We have, of course, taken all the biosecurity measures required by the pandemic, but this has enabled us to reactivate this economic activity. But we need to see beyond our borders, and we have not halted the work of international promotion of Nicaragua, trying to use the resources in a sound fashion and focusing on our main markets today, and also working with those countries with whom we have a link, Panama, El Salvador, the US, Mexico. And I would like to stress the strategic importance of Conviasa for the whole region. Thanks to the determination of Nicolas Maduro, Nicaragua started to operate with Conviasa a few years ago, and it was a very successful operation. We were able to cover a few routes. We are very profitable with the high demand. And we were flying to Cuba, Panama, and triangulation with Venezuela, and even trying to reach other countries of Central America. Then we had the pandemic, but as soon as we can, we're going to go back to those flights of Conviasa from Nicaragua as a hub for the Central American region. And this is very strategic and important. And continue working with Cuba, Venezuela, to see the cooperation with Bolivia and other sisterly nations, with multi-destination packages, which are very important. And also focusing on the Russian tourism who go to Cuba already. We were working with the multi-destination package with Cuba, and we hope that we will continue doing so in the future. And we had the direct flight between Havana, Managua. So hopefully after the pandemic, we can go back to those plans. We need to strengthen international cultural exchange. Our government, through the Culture Ministry, Rubén Darío Theater, coordinating activities both locally and internationally. It is enormous work. And I say it again, it is strongly linked to the work of tourism and creative economy, where we organize commercial, gastronomic, tourist fair with art, dance, poetry, songs, and so on. So Nicaraguan families and foreigners enjoy these spaces very much. And also, we follow the example of Cuba and Venezuela. The Youth Symphonic Orchestra, developed by Eternal Commander Hugo Chavez, they have been an example to us in order to develop a society that without culture cannot be considered developed. And also because they create pride. And we are working hand in hand with the Culture Ministry and the director of the theater and the head of the youth orchestras. Well, we are working hard with them with concrete results. And many young people are now interested in art and music. And we need to restore the rights of these people to have access to these educational programs that foster comprehensive development of human beings. Therefore, you can count on our total support. We have received the minutes of the meeting, and we fully support its content. And we hope that we can take joint concrete measures enabling us to conduct projects. And from here, we're going to have bilateral projects. And in this fashion, we can then foster what is being enshrined in the minutes. Thank you for fostering our integration. Thank you for defending our rights to sovereignty, self-determination, and peace, to live in peace and tranquility as we want in each one of our countries, because we have the right to decide our own destiny, and to victory forever. Thank you very much. Yes, to victory forever. Laureano, thank you very much for your intervention and for giving us this broad perspective of what is being done in Nicaragua and the proposals which are very similar to other initiatives in other part of the region. Now, I would like to give the floor to Denise Charles, Minister of Tourism, International Transport, and Maritime Initiatives of Dominica. Denise, you have the floor.
A pleasant good day to the distinguished members of government. It is really my pleasure to be a part of this meeting of cooperation, and it's a very timely meeting. As you know, the pandemic has been very difficult for us, especially for fragile economies like Dominica that is so sensitive to external shocks. So I was very pleased when I received the agenda for this meeting and the plan and the importance of strengthening our cooperation as countries. As you have most have rightly said, most of the Minister of Culture and Tourism have said, it's very important that we learn and we learn about each other's culture. And it's very important that we improve our cooperation and access to our destinations, because that is the only way we can become stronger as ALBA countries. The more we learn about each other, the closer we become, and the less differences we'll have between us. Because as you know, as Caribbean people, we go through the same challenges, we are vulnerable to the same shocks, and so the greater we can support each other to strengthen our cooperation, trade, and to learn more about each of our cultures, we can definitely build a robust tourism industry just among our member states. So I am very happy to be a part of this meeting. As you know, Dominica is the nature island of the Caribbean. And in order to help our recovery, as we go through this pandemic, we have launched 2 creative products. One is Work in Nature. And so we plan to have that product, the marketing material, converted into Spanish, so we can invite you, our brothers and sisters, to visit the nature island and to get to see all our natural attraction spots in Dominica. It is really a wonderful place to be as you recover from the pandemic, to visit our different falls, to see our different new hotels and resorts that we have built, and also to see the community tourism, as you said, the cultural aspects of Dominica that make us so unique, our history, our heritage. And there's a lot to learn about Dominica, despite the fact that we've only been independent for 40 years. We have a rich culture and history. And over the last few years, our tourism has had a key focus on culture and heritage. So I hope that through this cooperation, we will have more people from Bolivia, Venezuela, and Cuba visit Dominica, and we can also have exchanges from Dominica come to visit your islands, and as we said, to build stronger friendships. I will also say that we also have a good program to invite students. We plan to have exchanges with students. So students from Cuba and Venezuela can come to Dominica and learn English, and then our students that can go across, as they've been doing to Cuba, thanks to the government of Cuba for the scholarships and the government of Venezuela for the scholarships afforded to our students. We have had a very good student exchange program going on, and we have quite a few students who have returned from those programs and are contributing to national development. But even for short-term stints, like 3 to 6 months, we can have exchanges where students can come to learn English in Dominica, get to experience our culture, know about our culture, and students from Dominica can have a temporary engagement in Bolivia, Venezuela, Cuba, and the other destinations to learn about your culture as well. So I look forward to signing this cooperation agreement. Air access, I must say, is also a very key and important area for us, because for Dominica, especially since we don't have an international airport as yet, it can be challenging to come to Dominica from Venezuela or Cuba. So I was very pleased to see air access as an important strategic goal as part of our agenda. The better we can increase transportation among our islands, the better we can have people travel easier to our destinations without having to go through the United States or other destinations which may be a little troublesome. So I am pleased to see that air access has been given priority on this agenda, and I look forward to working with you as we strengthen our cooperation to further develop our countries. Viva ALBA!
Muchísimas gracias, querida compañera.
Thank you very much, dear sister, for your kind intervention. I've taken the due note of your proposal, the exchange program, cultural exchange program, first to learn English, but also to learn about the culture. These programs are very valuable and interesting. And I think we have planted the seed of having this sort of program among our countries. Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Rosalind Paul, Minister of Sports, Culture and Community Development of Dominica as well. You have the floor, madam.
Good afternoon to colleagues of the region, of ministers and other government officials represented here in this consultation, in this meeting.
Could you please speak louder?
Okay. Good afternoon to all ministers and other government officials representing ALBA. It is a privilege to be part of this discussion where we seek to exchange ideas, make proposals, and to strengthen our cooperation, particularly in the proposals that have been presented in this agenda. Dominica remain committed to this collaboration, and it's going to be beneficial to us and to, I would expect, all the islands, member countries in this region. Culture, the promotion, the preservation, first of all, and promotion of our cultural heritage is very critical to us. And it is a very important foundation to ensuring we have a spirit of hope and resilience in Dominica. As you would know, that we have a vision of ensuring we are one of the resilient countries, very resilient countries in the world. And the culture of a people is entrenched in that. And so we continue to ensure our arts and culture is meaning to our lives. We know as a people of the region, our arts and culture has given meaning to our lives and have helped to shape and identify us as a people. So we have common goals as a people of the Americas. And I think that is why such collaboration to promote and advance our culture and our tourism is very critical to us. As my colleague minister, Ms. Charles, pointed out, we have a very rich natural and cultural heritage. And so I'm very pleased as a minister to see that part of the agenda is to ensure that we can share our experiences with each other through cultural exchanges, which would benefit tourism, would benefit culture, and would also benefit the expansion of our economies across our member states. And so even as we face the pandemic, we realize that the pandemic has, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected every sector of society, every aspect of our life. And even with this pandemic, we would realize that there may be new opportunities for innovation and for the creative industries. For example, utilizing the virtual platform. And so it's really timely that we are discussing at this moment the new initiatives and new areas of collaboration for the advancement of all. And so as minister, as I said, we remain committed to the ALBA-TCP cultural and tourism agenda, and we see it as beneficial to all of us. And I see the importance of building, strengthening capacity through training, which is very critical to us, building alliances and pulling all our efforts together in this for future advances. And I really commend and support the areas and for training and development, the areas for cultural exchanges, for joint initiatives among us, and in particular, access being a challenge to us, that we can continue to improve our access so that the people of Bolivia, Nicaragua, Cuba, and all of these member countries with whom we have enjoyed very great friendships. You have been friends indeed to this lovely country of ours, Dominica, and we want to continue to strengthen that friendship and to really implement the agenda that has been presented here, the proposals that have been presented here. We accept and we look forward to signing on, and not only to signing on, but to implement. So thank you for this opportunity, and we really look forward to jointly implementing the various aspects of this agenda for the advancement of the ALBA member countries and its people. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much for your remarks. They were very important. And we will take due note of all your remarks. I will now like to give the floor to Carlos James, Minister of Tourism, Development and Culture of San Vincent and the Grenadines. You have the floor, sir. Carlos James with the floor.
Good afternoon to everyone. I must apologize for my minister. He had to step out, and so as the cultural officer from the Department of Culture, I'll bring you some remarks. Good afternoon, buenas tardes. Hello? Am I being heard?
Buenas tardes, señora.
Okay, yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you fine. We can hear you.
My name is Maxine Brown. I'm the cultural officer at the Department of Culture in the Ministry of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture. And so I bring you some brief remarks. From the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, and by extension, the protocols established by the Ministry of Health govern many of our programming. Thereafter, the explosive eruption of the La Soufrière volcano presented further challenges, and the Department of Culture and the Ministry of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture, we were literally forced to halt our ways of doing things based on our cultural events in response to the immediate needs of the country during our state of emergency when we had our volcanic eruption. However, in spite of the pandemic, compounded by the eruption, the Ministry of Culture was forced to think outside the box by using the ingenuity of our creative minds to invest and our invent means to not only use the arts to bring a sense of joy and hope to our fellow Vincentians, but simultaneously devise ways to execute a program that will be facilitated during these tough times. Going virtual and scale back became our watchwords. To this end, we found solace in the technical and developmental support of the Agency of Public Information and the VC3 Television, who we will have collaborated with, albeit on a smaller scale, to assist us in the documentation of our creative and cultural programs to be showcased for the edification of our people, our youth in schools and wider communities, teachers, churches, and the multiple individuals of the organization we train and engage with at our department to the programs we facilitate in the arts. Thus, using the aforementioned media, we were able to achieve most of the programs virtually. So virtually became the way of doing things, the virtual space. On a smaller scale, as it pertains to reduced numbers, we were still able to host and facilitate programs during the Hymns and Heritage Month that's usually being held in February, and other consultations where we met with our people to hear their needs and to assess how we can help even during these tough times. Now, we met with stakeholders, discussed this new vaccine. They were a bit hesitant, but slowly but surely we're getting there so that we can resume a sense of normalcy amidst all the anti-vaccination dilemma. But yeah, we're trying with that. It is important to emphasize that there has not only been a slight increase in our program and activities that we're able to achieve through our department, tourism, sports, culture, but we also present integral means of assisting the efforts in our community during the recovery period. Use this time of crisis to take the arts, all areas of the performing arts, through the length and breadth of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to respond to evacuees. Not only did we use the arts to bring a sense of hope and promise to our blessed homeland, but we sought sponsorship as well as we used our personal funds to provide meals and other food and essential packages, proving that the Ministry of Tourism and Culture continue to engage our community during our time of normalcy and during time of disaster. So we fight with all forces. We have hosted stakeholders conferences through tourism so that we can hear again from our stakeholders. We believe in hearing from our people so we can best assess how to supply or meet their needs. Continued collaboration with various entities locally, regionally, and internationally to assess the needs. They wanted to assess how they can help us during our volcanic eruption. And I must say that we were able to get a lot of help, and for that we're truly grateful. And as we're here, we plan to strengthen our support of the ALBA projects, our ALBA brothers and sisters, our ALBA countries through exchanges. We are ready, I must emphasize, we are ready to collaborate with all of our ALBA countries in music tours, music production, our indigenous culture, our agricultural heritage. There's fashion, there's craft, there's audiovisual, film and animation becoming a new thing in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Our marketing, e-commerce, because this time everything is virtual, and tourism. As we are very dedicated to creating an ALBA house to facilitate varied programs in all areas of the arts, in all areas of the creative and cultural industries. We are glad to be here in collaboration with all our brothers and sisters through ALBA. And we want to thank you for this invitation to be here. We want to pledge our commitment to ALBA as we work hand in hand to develop and promote culture and tourism. We are here as an extension for our brothers and sisters from the ALBA countries. I know you will continue to collaborate with us at the ALBA house and get our programmings up and kicking. And at this time, I want to say, muchas gracias por todos. Viva ALBA. Viva ALBA también.
Que viva el ALBA. Muchísimas gracias, querida compañera.
Long live ALBA. Thank you very much for your remarks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are always at your service. I had the opportunity to visit St. Vincent and the Grenadines with my friend Raúl Icausi, president of the ALBA Bank, after the eruption of the volcano. And we have seen how all the ALBA countries expressed their solidarity. Thank you very much for your remarks. I will now give the floor to Valencia Seiler, the Permanent Secretary of Education, Youth, Sport, and Culture, Ministry of St. Kitts and Nevis. You have the floor.
Good afternoon. One correction, I am the Permanent Secretary of the Ministries of Youth, Sports and Culture, not the Permanent Secretary of Education, although we see the same minister. And I bring you greeting from the Honorable Minister of Education, Youth, Sports and Culture, the Honorable Jonel Powell. A pleasant good afternoon to all present on this call. We welcome President, good afternoon, Buenos Aires, to everyone here on this call. We are all one people. We are just separated by water, but we are joined together by heart. At the St. Kitts Department of Culture, we welcome any collaboration or any assistance as it relates to preserving our cultural landscape. For too long, culture has been viewed as just entertainment, but culture is more than entertainment. Culture is our heritage and it has much economic viability. Here in St. Kitts, we are doing our part to preserve and document our culture, our heritage, both tangible and intangible. While going through the agenda for this afternoon, item J stuck out for me. It goes developing training programs aimed at improving research, documentation, preservation, creation, and dissemination of cultural context. That falls right in line with two very important projects that we are working on here at the Department of Culture. One is called the ICH, which is our Intangible Cultural Heritage, and we are also presently working on what we call the NCIR, that is our Cultural Heritage Registry. I have here with me this afternoon my Director of Culture, Mr. Troy Mills, and he's going to now give you some history, some details on both of these projects so you can better understand what we are working on. Because here in St. Kitts, we believe that all our cultural practitioners, we believe that their work should not go in vain. We should help them preserve it, add some professionalism to their craft so their craft is not viewed as just a hobby, that it has some sense of purpose to help with our cultural identity. So I now defer to Mr. Mills.
Buenos tardes todos. No hablo mucho español. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good evening. I don't speak Spanish very much.
And it is our pleasure to be here, the Permanent Secretary and myself, to present on behalf of the Department of Culture. Ms. Saida mentioned a very important project to us, the ICH project. Back in 2018, we applied to UNESCO, we submitted a proposal where we were asking them to fund us going out, speaking to persons in the community, tradition bearers, finding out what they consider important to them. And in St. Kitts Nevis, we are two separate countries, one federation. Our project was successful, and thus we were the first country in the English-speaking Caribbean to benefit from such a project. And we were able to divide the countries in zones, get teams out, interview persons on things perhaps our forefathers were doing and are somewhat facing extinction, for want of a better expression. Because like the peer said, it's important for us to have it documented. So 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, when we are gone, our grandchildren and their children will be able to know what makes us special as a people here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Yes, we are same people. Some cases our cultures are similar, but very different. One of the programs we worked on was making of cassava bread. This was a tradition brought to us here in the Caribbean by our forefathers. And I suspect many countries, many members of ALBA, they do cassava bread and they may have various treatments the way they do it. Our younger generation today, they are not too keen on that. So our program, this is one of the items we identified, was to go out and interview persons who make the cassava bread from scratch. You plant it, you reap it, you prepare it, and you actually sell it, how you go about making it and selling it. So we were able to document that as one of the projects. Another one is vernacular houses, how we go about building them. Most times today we use the traditional nails and zincs, but these would have been used in wooden plugs. And in most cases, these houses would have lasted much longer, coming up against the hurricanes that we are facing. So those are two of the examples that we are very proud. And there are more, but these are two we highlighted, one from St. Kitts, one from Nevis, that we are very proud that we were able to get this project. And though it was of a 2-year sponsorship from UNESCO, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, we have to make it sustainable because there are so many other items here in St. Kitts and Nevis. If we don't document and document properly, 20 years from now, our children, our grandchildren, they may not know they existed. And like anything else, things passed down, they may get a little diluted, so they wouldn't understand the traditional way of doing things. The SKMCIR, PSI dimension, the St. Kitts and Nevis Creative Industry Registry, it is meant for us to capture the creative workers we have here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, to have a database. So in case we would want to do training, in case we get opportunities for persons to train, we actually would be able to go and look and have persons that we have the confidence in. And we would ensure that they are trained to particular levels. So that is key. In terms of the new initiatives, we had elections here in St. Kitts Nevis last year, 2020, and the government, they were returned to office, and they created a new ministry, the Ministry of Entertainment, Entrepreneurship, and Talent Development. That is a ministry that we would have to work very closely with, that the Department of Culture. And we have already started, as a matter of fact, because coming out of the conditions in 2020, the colleague from St. Vincent and the Grenadines mentioned that things had to be done differently. In the midst of campaigns, everything was virtual, and a lot of the entertainment, a lot of creative ideas came forward with from the young people. And this was behind the creation of the new ministry. And it is meant to harness the various talents. The use of drones, for example, that came about popularly last year, at least here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And it is now a big thing. We are hosting one of the Caribbean's premier sports program, CPL. It's a T20 cricket tournament played by countries in the Caribbean. And the drone element of it is key. For that, we have had cultural programs in Independence Square, which is of significant cultural heritage to us. And as shot from Independence Square by the zone, it is a very, very beautiful experience. And this is something that we're very proud of. And we appreciate this timely meeting I am familiar with the ALBA meeting from 2015-16 when I became the Director of Culture. And we thank the different countries for reviving it, so to speak. And we particularly look forward to sharing the cultures, the exchanges between our people. And I thank you for the opportunity to present on behalf of the PS and myself. I thank you for giving us the opportunity from the Department of Culture. Gracias.
Monsieur Dom, bonjour. C'est bien calme ici. Monsieur Petit, ça va et toi?
Gracias por su participación.
Thank you very much for your participation. It is my understanding that I should now read the minutes of the meeting and then to submit this minutes to your consideration in order to adopt it. So I will read the main agreements of the meeting today. The ministers and high authorities of tourism and culture of ALBA-TCP agreed. 1. To ratify the importance of culture to address the consequences that the current social, political, and economic crisis has caused to our peoples, which has been worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. 2. Recognize the importance of dialogue with artists and a relationship with the system of cultural institutions to improve community social cultural management, which has been diversified in the COVID-19 epidemiological context. Continue to work with artists, writers, cultural promoters to create new and better spaces in order to foster arts and culture for our peoples. Cultural work in communities reinforces social integration and favors the defense of local and national expressions. 4. Optimize the use of virtual platforms to make community cultural projects visible. 5. Condemn the use of social networks by the great powers and corporations of communication and information to censor the true cultural values of our communities and distort the daily reality of our peoples. 6. Confirm the cultural industries and cooperation are the driving force behind the cultural development of our countries. We propose to forge an alliance between our countries to extend these initiatives, which are very useful to combat the imposition of cultural foreign patterns to our people. 7. To develop common communication campaigns to ensure the continuity of community cultural projects, especially in the complex context facing of a pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. 8. Adopt a schedule of meetings between national authorities in the field of cultural development. 9. Strengthen the cultural field of ALBA-TCP member countries by organizing a joint agenda of cultural activities, focusing on the participation of delegations and all representations of ALBA-TCP countries in the main artistic and cultural events organized in the region each year. 10. Hold virtual or on-site meetings among authorities in charge of the main cultural institutions of the ALBA-TCP countries in order to establish cooperation mechanisms and information and experience exchange to coordinate lines of action and production regarding art and culture. 11, reinforce the coordination mechanisms of the member states with groups, organizations, and social movements of artistic and cultural production in the region in order to develop permanent and joint activities in defense of national expressions and the cultural diversity of the peoples of the Alliance. 12, support the permanent coordination between research institutions, intellectual networks, artists, and social movements in defense of humankind to consolidate an anti-imperialist movement in order to strengthen the cultural work of the ALBA-TCP countries. to implement a coordinated cooperation strategy to strengthen technological capacities and develop training programs aimed at improving research, documentation, preservation, creation, and dissemination of cultural content among the countries of the regional bloc. 14. We launched the ALBA-TCP Awards in all artistic categories to foster the recognition of the artists and cultural promoters of the region and guarantee the exchange of valuable experiences that reflect the richness and cultural diversity of our people. 15. Create exchange programs for cultural trainers and managers to develop under the principles of complementarity, solidarity, harmony, balance, equality, and equity, cultural work and action teams benefiting from the predominant experiences and knowledge of each people. 16. Build a network of ALBA-TCP museums for the exchange of experiences and cultural heritage, preservation of the popular culture's memory, and promotion of cultural economy and industry systems in the geographical area of the member country. 17. Foster editorial plans to publish poetry and literature anthologies by authors from ALBA-TCP countries and promote their dissemination, visibility, and presence in the activities of the regional bloc. 18. Identify the challenges posed by the growth of social networks and 3.0 platforms in the context of the cultural battle and design creation and dissemination systems for multimedia content aimed at promoting the values of regional identity and the cultural diversity of the peoples of Alba. Reject the imposition of unilateral coercive measures contravening international law and denounce their impact on the full enjoyment of the cultural rights of our peoples, including the right to artistic creation. 20. Make progress in the consolidation of information and communication strategies deep-rooted in the historical, cultural, political, and social processes of our peoples, strengthening alternative, inclusive, intercultural, and opportune and quality communication. 21. Express support for the situation regarding the assignment of the Amazon domain, which has affected the cultural and linguistic heritage of each of the 8 Amazonian countries in our region. 22. Endorse the commitments undertaken in the statement of the third meeting of Ministers of Culture held on September 18th and 19th, 2015 in Havana, Cuba, with special emphasis on regional leadership in the field of prevention and fight against illicit trafficking of cultural property, individual and collective cultural rights in the digital realm. And 23, strengthen coordination among the ALBA houses for the fulfillment of the relevant agreements adopted at this meeting. On tourism, 24, strengthen tourism cooperation as an expression of solidarity in order to promote bilateral and regional programs and projects, as well as triangular cooperation for development, taking into account the priorities and possibilities of our countries. 25. Design tourism strategies based on the experience of projects previously implemented by ALBA-TCP member states, including education and training, exchange of good practices, tourism safety, promotion and marketing, tourism events and fairs, among others, taking into account the new normality imposed by the international healthcare situation. 26. Work together to reactivate the tourism sector through concrete actions for the benefit of our people. 27. Reiterate our commitment to the development of sustainable tourism as a factor of cultural, historical, and socio-economic exchange among our people. And 28. Express our gratitude for the support of the ALBA-TCP nations in the struggle for the lifting of the U.S. blockade against Cuba, which is significantly affecting the development of tourism at a cost of over $1 billion every year. 29, embrace the tourism sector as one of the main driving forces for the development of our economies, taking into account that tourism is a structural factor in the integral growth of our countries, given its cross-cutting contribution to other productive sectors. 30, coordinate the participation of ALBA-TCP countries in activities for the tourism promotion and strengthening of the region as an effective strategy for joint work and cooperation among our nations. 31, promote cooperation among civil aeronautics authorities and states and private airlines or countries, leading to the strengthening of air connectivity into regions, since this is one of the main factors for the development of tourism in our America. 32, encourage coordination among national tourism authorities for the development of multi-destination tourism products as a tool for the joint promotion of the main destinations and tourist attractions of our nation's new third markets. 33, contribute to tourism education and training for the sustainable development of the sector, being an important driving force for the recovery, prevention, and defense of the social cultural heritage of our people, as well as for the improvement of the quality and competitiveness of the sector as a whole. 34, exchange information and best practices regarding the plans and strategies implemented by our tourism authorities for the reactivation of tourism activities in ALBA-TCP countries in order to promote the growth of income and tourism in the nations. 35, encourage the standardization of entry requirements and biosecurity measures implemented in human movement with the view to regularizing the arrival of foreign tourists in the region within a coordinated environment. 36, work towards the creation of a biannual work plan for the consolidation of the medium and long-term goals of the tourism sector in the member countries of the Alliance and the region, including the necessary strategies for the development of our people's tourism activities. 37, propose a tourist route of the liberators in each member country of the Alliance, which shall be part of the liberators route of the ALBA-TCP countries, following up on the initial agreements of ALBA-TCP. Exchange experiences on the provision of tourism services through technical training to be provided in the hotel management schools in our countries. And finally, 39, share experiences on tourism risk management systems in terms of security, climatic events, and biosecurity. Caracas, August 30th, 2021. I now submit your consideration of the delegates of the member states of our alliance. These minutes, those in favor of its approval, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. So we have adopted this resolution. Thank you very much for your work throughout today's meeting. Thank you very much. So we have concluded our meeting today. I would like to thank you for your time, for the work you have done to prepare this meeting, to present your ideas. We have many works. We are going to distribute a proposal by the Minister of Tourism from Venezuela, and the Secretariat is going to guarantee that we will attain these agreements and that we will continue transforming the life of our countries. Thank you very much for all of you. Greetings from Bolivia at 3,600 meters above the sea level. Thank you to all our family of the Alliance. Thank you very much. We will prevail.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.